Welcome back once again, friends. In this video, we'll continue our journey into the world of Python. We are going to look at two extremely interesting methods called endswith and startswith. Now, as the name suggests, these allow us to figure out if a string ends or starts with a given substring. For example, test, this is fun. If I say print test ends with test dot ends with fun, that turns out true because indeed this string ends with fun. On the other hand, if I try test dot starts with fun, I get a false because this string starts with this and not fun, right? So that's why it comes this way. Now, along with this, right, these two methods themselves are quite simple, but it's also a good opportunity for us to see what's exactly going on in our program, which is this Grumpy Assistant program that we are developing. And hence, we are also going to take a closer look at the indentations that we are doing in this. Hence, this is a very important point in this program so that things keep working in a nice way, right? So let's get back to our program. Remember, we had this last question where we are figuring out if we've got the right number of vowels and so on and so forth. Before I go further, right, it's important to kind of step back and take, let's say, a bird's eye look at this project, right? Because we sometimes we start coding and we lose track of where we are, right? So for that purpose, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just go to my settings. I'm going to say, well, put this side by side so that I get to see more of my code, and also I'm going to say, font size. I'm going to say it, make it tiny. Right now, by doing this, I can see a lot of my code over here. Um, in this let's say in this, so what's happening here, let's take a step back. Like I said, first we ask a warm-up question, and that was handled with this if else. Right now, remember, when I put this print, I had actually removed the indentation from here, which means that this loop is over right here, and this print here is not part of the indentation here, and hence it's not part of the else, right? Which means that I could now start my next question also starts at the base indentation level. Next question is obviously more interesting because we have got if inside an if. In fact, we've got an if else inside an if else, right? So the way to, it's important to sort of take a step back and look at this code from a top view, right? So here what's happening is we have this basic if else statement. Notice this indentation is matching to this else. So that's the first level statement, whether the word had, let's say, 8 letters or not, right? So if it had 8 letters, I did this, else I did something else. I just did a simple print, right? Now within this, right, within this, if the word indeed had 8 letters, then I did further checks, which is why this set of if, else is indented from here. And within this, of course, there has to be an indentation, right? So this big picture is very, very important. In fact, we are going to see this once again after we are done with the, doing the changes that we want to make now. I want to just highlight a couple of things that if, let's say, by mistake you had not indented this portion, right, you are going to get an error because the indentation for the if block would have gone completely wrong. Even more complicated thing could happen. Say we had, put this if else for some other code we are doing. This code was inside the else and we had forgotten to indent it, right? Now, in that case, what will happen is that, remember, if I forget to indent this piece of code, it gets aligned with the main, let's say the base indentation, and hence it will look like a separate if else loop. It will not look like a loop which is part of this if or else, right? So be very careful on this because these are sources of problem. This is just related to the fact that indentation is so important in Python, right? Now, moving forward, of course, we want the next question to appear irrespective of what has happened earlier, which means that we have to be careful that the question here must start back at the base, at the base indentation level, exactly like we had done a print over here after the first question, aligned with the, the base indentation, which means I remove this indentation, I put this, right? Now, please be careful on this because if you make mistake on this indentation, you may see a situation where the third question is not seen at all, or probably it's seen only under certain conditions, right? So be a little bit careful on this, right? So, but having done that, we can go back to our, let's say, the stack view because it's kind of nicer as well. And also I'm going to make the font back to normal so that we can see it a bit more easily. Now I'm going to ask myself a question. I'm going to ask the next question. So I'm going to say sentence equals to input, uh, let's say, okay, tell me a sentence ending in wise assistant. Right now, I'm going to say, no questions, please. So assistant does not want to hear any questions. No questions, please. And I'll put a backslash n over here so that I can, get to answer this in the next line. Right now, really, what I'm going towards is that I'm visualizing that there are three types of answers I might get. One, I might get a sentence which ends in wise assistant, but I forget to put the full stop. So, in which case, it's not going to, please this assistant. He's going to be cribbing about the missing punctuation. Next, I get it all right. I put wise assistant. I also put a full stop, which case it looks like the sentence is correct and the assistant must become happy. But remember, the assistant is grumpy. He's never going to be happy. He's going to find something else to trouble us about, right? Of course, that's for a later time. And finally, the third situation that the sentence ends in something totally different, right? So, which means that the response of the assistant now depends upon three situations, which is basically a multi-level if condition. And you guessed it right. We are going to go towards an if else, right? Just like we have done previously, right? Again, I come back to the base indentation and I say if, say, sentence dot ends with, right? If sentence dot ends with, let's say I say, you know, in this case I say wise assistant. Now notice this is a situation where the sentence does not have the full stop in the end, right? That's why I'm said wise ending in wise assistant. But of course, wise assistant. But of course, I must give this colon. And now I'm by default by the construction I'm indented. So I'm going to say print. Probably I can say have you. Okay, I have to be careful again. So have you not learned about punctuations? I mean, the assistant is not happy. Uh, Next, let's say I say elif. Again, I must put a condition here because this is the second one I'm visualizing. Yes, the sentence ends with wise assistant, and indeed I have given I've given, let's say, a full stop here, right? So which means, I mean, this is exactly what the assistant is asking. So he must become happy. However, our assistant is never to be happy. Says Adiel, that sentence looks okay. That sentence looks okay, but right, hang on, but wait. So he's going to find some other fault in it, but we'll come back to this at another time. However, right now I can finish this with an else, and I can say, look, if the sentence ends with something else, I think you will really make the prof say furious. Okay, furious. Okay, now we've got here a simple elif else situation. Let's test this out. So I'm going to say, if I run this, it says, okay, I answer verbs. Next I answer says circular. uh, Next says tell me a sentence ending in wise assistant. So I'll go into the all three. Let's say I say you are a wise assist assistant. Right now, notice here I'm intentionally forgetting the punctuation, and I want this to be caught here by this statement because sentence does not end with a wise. I mean, sentence ends with a wise assistant, so it should go into the first one, and indeed that happens. It asks me, "Have you not learned about punctuations?" Right? Let's try this next example. So I come in here, I answer say verbs. Right? Give me a little word, at least three vowels. So I say circular. Let's say circular. Okay, tell me a sentence ending in wise assistant. So I say you are a wise ISTANT, and this time I do put the full stop because I'm a little bit more careful. I think assistant should be happy. It says sentence looks okay, but wait, we have to wait. Let's try something else. So here I go and say, okay, look, so I say verbs, say circular, and now let's say I say today is a great day. Now this sentence neither ends in wise assistant without full stop, nor does it end in a wise assistant with full stop, which means it must come over here. And indeed that's what happens. When I do this, it says you will really make the prof furious, right? So again, I can just make this you. Notice we see how the if else is working. Before we go forward, let's look at two things. Let's first go back to our, let's say, side by side view in a tiny, let's say, in a tiny um, setting, and we can see the indentation once again to be sure. Notice this is all going to be a new question, new sentence, regardless of which way this code has happened, right? Also, before I, wrap this up, let's also see the other method that I told you, which is that of starts with, right? So remember our sentence here. If I print sentence, uh, our sentence is today is a great day. So let's say I want to try print sentence dot dot starts with, right? Say I put in here today. I'm expecting to see a true over here because the sentence indeed starts with today, and so I get a true. However, if I, let's say, sentence starts with, say, I, no, this does not start with an I, and hence I get a false. So I hope you found this useful. Ends with, starts with, as well as the discussion about indentation, which is actually very, very important. Otherwise, your code is not going to behave the way you thought it should. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.